Unfinished and cut content have been staples of classic WoW since the very beginning. Quest lines that lead nowhere, obsolete items in the game files, or NPCs who linger around but serve no purpose. Many of us look at these things as intriguing mysteries rather than bugs in the game's design, and there are hundreds of documented examples across Azeroth. When the Burning Crusade launched in 2007, you might have thought that these anomalies disappeared, with the multi-year development of vanilla shifting to a more streamlined approach for the expansion. While this is true to some extent, I'm here to present one of these forgotten tales that can be found on Outland, or at least in the game files. For some reason, a lengthy 10-part quest chain in Hellfire Peninsula was scrapped during the TBC beta, and only some of the content ended up making it into the live game. Today, I want to explore this lost Fel Orc quest line, what lore we can learn from it, speculate on why it was cut, and what pieces of it can still be found in-game. As always, thank you for the fun comments and support, and with all that being said, let's get right into it. Today's story begins either just outside Honor Hold or within Thrallmar, depending on your faction. This cut storyline is mirrored on both the Alliance and Horde sides, and while I'll mainly be focusing on the Alliance side just for the sake of not repeating myself constantly, I'll be sure to mention any details unique to the Horde side. According to the game files, the chain begins with a quest titled The Citadel's Reach, given by either Lieutenant Amadi or Shadowhunter Taijin. They express their concern with the growing number of Fel Orcs pouring out of Hellfire Citadel to the west, explaining that they sent out a scout to gather intel, but they haven't returned. Alliance players are sent to the nearby southern rampart to look for clues, and Horde players check the northern rampart, where they find a set of orders sent by war boss Necrog. Even though these quests aren't available in the game, many of the game objects are still present, and we can find both sets of orders in small orc camps just below the ramparts. On today's TBC anniversary servers, it's even more strange when you notice that the documents have the sparkling objective effect, for some reason. I should also note that while the quests have some data, they're missing any in progress or completion text, so there's a bit of filling in the blanks that we have to do to keep track of the story. The war boss's note leads to two follow-up quests. One that is a generic kill quest regarding the nearby Fel Orcs that has you report back to base when you're done, and another that relates to the missing scout. The orders direct the Fel Orcs to bring their human or orcish prisoner south for interrogation, and not far away lies your next clue, the scout's sword and shield, discarded in a corner of the camp. Yet another weird detail to be found here. Both swords are labeled objects and you can hover over them, while the shields, which are the actual quest endpoints, aren't interactable at all. The follow-up has you continue your pursuit, and is titled either Saving Private Amarian or Saving Scout Maka, the former probably being a reference to the movie Saving Private Ryan. From the shield, you have a bit of a trek south to the bottom of the southern rampart, where the Gorgaz outpost is found. It's crawling with Fel Orcs, but if you fight your way through, there are two cages to be found in one of the burned out huts, each containing one of the missing scouts. Or at least, they used to. There are screenshots and private servers that prove the existence of these NPCs, but on today's classic servers, both the scouts and the cages are gone. Maybe the modern devs didn't want players running into this unfinished content. Anyway, if we imagine the quests were implemented, and you could talk to the scouts here, here's what they would say to you. Like I said, getting out of here won't be easy. War boss Necrog may look like an overgrown brute, but he's no simpleton. He won't let the cage key out of his sight, and doesn't come down from his tower atop that chunk of wall until he's ready to question me or that orc he's managed to capture. But I have an idea. Find one of the grenadiers that patrol the ground along the southern rampart, and bring me some of his explosives. Sure enough, if we look up on the rampart above, we see Warboss Necrog, a Fel Orc up on the wall who can only be fought if you have a flying mount. Considering this is a level 61 quest and most players here don't have one, it's a cool detail that the scout wants to bait the boss down here so you can fight him and grab the key. After finding some explosives from the Fel Orc Grenadiers patrolling in the area, it's time for the provocation. You can use the explosives, but nothing happens, and it seems the scripting for blowing up the banner went unfinished. However, we can still imagine the banner on the wall going up in flames, and an enraged Necrog appearing at the foot of the rampart, ready for battle. After defeating him and looting his key, your final task here would have been to free the scout and report back to your superior, Lieutenant Amati for Alliance players, or onward to Stoneguard Ambalon at the Spinebreaker post for the Horde. There are even 3 rewards listed, but since the quests were never added, there's no way to obtain these 3 rings anywhere in the game. This is the end of the search and rescue mission, but there are a few more steps needed to deal with the fellow orcs further up the chain of command. With the outer ramparts secured, the Alliance and Horde want to focus on Zethgor in the east, another stronghold of enemies that could be preparing for an assault. You're sent to eliminate Jediwarlock Darkeye, a dark shaman critical to the fellow orc war effort. His name is probably a reference to Kilrog Deadeye, an influential chieftain of the old Horde who was defeated in battle by Denath Trollbane. After slaying Jediwarlock in his cave underneath Zethgor, you can find the Bleeding Hollow attack plans on a nearby table. Like many of the other game objects, these are present in the live game, but they serve no actual purpose. Here's what the follow-up would have said. A quick examination of the plans reveals Zethgor's leader, Warlord Mork, as the mastermind behind the attacks led by Bone Magus Warlord. There's more to the map than just Mork's forces. The plans indicate that the Bone Chewer force is armed and marshalling for an all-out attack on Honorhold in concert with forces from Hellfire Citadel. There's no time to bring word to Lieutenant Amati. You must stop the Bone Chewer forces before they can launch their attack. The most interesting part has to be the mention of Bone Magus Warlord, a character who is obviously very influential in the Fel Orc army and has led raids on the Alliance and Horde bases before, but we never see him in-game. He is found in the game files though, and I have a few theories as to where he could fit into the story. The first is that he was the original version of Jediwarlock Deadeye, as the nearby necrolytes can summon skeletons, and it seems like something right up this guy's alley. The second is that he was going to be used as a part of a scripted event on the main bases, similar to how there are Infernals attacking the guards at Thrallmar every so often. Either way, he's another piece of the puzzle that was lost during development. After reading the battle plans, you make your way into Zethgor and eliminate your targets, including Warlord Mork. Returning back to base, you're then sent to fight your way down the path of glory to the foot of Hellfire Citadel itself, where Drillmaster Zurok is patrolling. He's elite, and you'll probably want a partner to help eliminate him and retrieve his sealed orders, but you'll want even more help for the finale, a quest titled Dispatching the Commander. On the opposite side of the Citadel's east wall is Force Commander Gorax, the highest-ranking soldier outside of the fortress itself. Defeating him brings us to the end of the storyline, and while we don't have the completion text to see what comes of our efforts, we do know there were some rare quality chest plates that were supposed to be given out as rewards. 5 of the 6 options were reappropriated as rewards in other quests, but the Flesh Ripper's bladed chest plate is no longer available in the game. Another item lost in time. So, after all that, we have a 10-part quest chain for both factions that features a prisoner rescue and an outright war against the Fel Orcs throughout this zone, now scrapped in its entirety. But why? I'm not sure, but maybe it's because Blizzard was already foreseeing the immense player capacity that was going to have to be accommodated when the Dark Portal opened, and they removed these objectives so Alliance and Horde players weren't running around through these steps in parallel at the same time. Or, from a storytelling perspective, steps 7 through 10 all have you defeating a named villain as a main part of the quest, which may have felt a little repetitive and could have lessened the satisfaction of each victory. There's good and bad news that goes along with the decision to scrap this lengthy storyline. On one hand, the entire investigation into the 2 scouts was removed, including the NPCs now, which is a shame. And now there's only one reference to Private Amarian that's mentioned by Lieutenant Amati during a separate breadcrumb quest. Stoneguard Ambalon doesn't even have a purpose anymore, but I'm sure the Horde appreciates his defensive capabilities at their small camp. The silver lining is that the steps I mentioned earlier, 7 through 10, were all at least partially repurposed for the finales of unique, faction-specific quest lines that I've included on screen here. It seems as though these main Fel Orc villains were divided among the Alliance and Horde to deal with, which could be a solution for both of the concerns I listed earlier. I personally think this is a better way of designing the encounters against these enemies, though I do think steps 1 through 6 could have been tied up nicely as their own story and kept in the final release. There's not much more to discuss here, but it seems the trade-off of losing some good quests meant getting a few others modified and enhanced into the versions we know today. There's something so fascinating to me about cut content in a game as expansive as WoW, and now you know about one more example that you've been close to every time you've started a new journey in the Burning Crusade. Thank you all so much for watching. I hope you learned something new today, and as always, I'm excited to hear your thoughts and details down in the comments. I've also included a link to the start of the quest chain on Wowpedia if you want to read through the whole thing yourself. A special thank you to my channel members who provide bonus support for these videos, and until next time, may the Force be with you.